Good Tuesday morning. I'm meteorologist Craig Moeller. It's a pleasure to have you with us here on the Weather Desk. We do have a great show lined up for you. Sarah Calloway, our super producer, again at the helm, and we are in our new studios here and excited to be here because we can do so much. And again, addressing the big weather stories of the day. Sarah, how you doing this morning?
I'm great.
Did you enjoy yesterday?
I did. I'm still getting used to it.
Yeah? Wait,
so far so good.
You're getting used to
doing Weather Desk in here.
Oh, I thought you were talking about like the weather. I was like, are you kidding me? It was like 85 and mostly sunny. Yeah. Today we're going to be back up into the lower to mid 80s, low humidity for Hampton Roads. We've got a great day shaping up. But we do have our digs here in the 13 News Now Live Impact Studios, and we're happy to be here with you on the Weather Desk. We're going to take a look at today's headlines, what we're going to dive into. We do have more on the Indiana power outages, the update there. I think it was ABC News had a headline that I really is like, Indiana power outage turns to outrage. So outage to outrage. And I get it. It's been over 2 weeks. They hope to get the power back on there. We're going to get the latest from Indiana coming up. Then a really sad story out of Fort Lauderdale. It just broke my heart. Lightning struck and killed a mother and one of her twin daughters. And we're going to hear a little bit more about that situation in Florida. Very sad news. Listening to the father talking about it yesterday, just imagine your life just absolutely devastated. Again, a lightning strike. We talk about lightning safety a lot here. It is so dangerous. In addition to those headlines, we have wildfire updates from the Hawk Fire. A little bit of good news from that one, Sarah. And we have the Ross Fire, which is a fire that's burning out to the west of the Dallas area. So we'll talk about those two fires. We have an update on the tropics, and guess what? Both basins are pretty active right now, watching two potential areas of development in the Atlantic. And it looks like the Pacific's just popping off right now. Of course, we had Moke, and that's now just a remnant low, moving away and farther away from Hawaii, so no problem there. But there is Isel and there is Julio, and both of those tropical systems out in the Pacific. We'll show you that, some other areas we're watching as well. After that, we're going to talk about water damage to the historic Wells Theater in Norfolk, and the Virginia Stage Company hoping to get that shaped up. You know, there was so much flooding in Norfolk from the recent heavy rains. We had the storm earlier in the month around the 4th, and then the one over the weekend. Just a lot of headaches for a lot of folks in Norfolk, so we'll talk some more about that. And a spectacular sight in the morning sky. Sarah, we were getting emails left and right. People, was this a UFO? What's going on? A comet? I had a buddy that was out fishing saying, Craig, coolest comet I ever saw. I said, Anthony, pump your brakes, brother. It is not a comet. We'll tell you what was up in the sky, and we'll show you some pictures of that coming up. Let's start off, though, with a look at Indiana. And right now, high pressure still in control of northern Indiana. And that's good news because the power crews there are working hard to restore power. There are residents still without it there in Indiana, and it all started on the 11th of August. Back-to-back storms slammed the northwestern part of the state. A derecho came through, a large area of wind, leaving almost 375,000 customers in the dark. As of yesterday afternoon, Monday afternoon, that number is down to just 9,300, and officials at Northern Indiana Public Service Company, or NIPSCO, says they hope to have power restored to everyone in the region sometime today, but some residents say their expectations are low.
We've gotten these different timelines of when we're going to get power, and we've been told something, and then that passes and it doesn't happen. I don't have faith that it's going to be Tuesday.
The Indiana governor says his office is calling for an investigation into how NIPSCO handled the power outages, and NIPSCO says they will cooperate fully. All right, we're going to turn our attention from Indiana down to Florida. And again, high pressure over much of the Sunshine State. There's still some scattered showers, so frequently almost every afternoon. They get storms along the coast, and it was a tragic scene down in Florida. A lightning strike killed a mother and her 2-year-old daughter. Now, this happened near Fort Lauderdale on Sunday afternoon. A neighbor said she called 911 after finding them laying in the driveway of a home.
I heard this large lightning strike. I saw orange glow through my window. My son said, "Dad, there's a lady on the floor. She got hit." And I almost didn't want to believe him. And I looked through my window and I saw a lady.
So sad. During that same storm, about 25 miles away, another lightning strike injured a child playing soccer outside. He was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. Very tough situation down in Florida. And again, just a reminder of how dangerous lightning can be. We heard from the husband of the lady killed and the father of the daughter. They had 2 twin daughters, 2 years of age, and one of those daughters obviously died. So the father just saying she has to explain to his surviving daughter that she now has 2 angels watching over her. But I just thought about the impact of that life. It's just heart-wrenching. All right, we're going to get into the severe weather outlook. We mentioned Florida with high pressure over them right now. As we look across the country, a couple of areas kind of jump off the map. You can see there is a marginal risk or level 1 threat of severe weather down along the Florida-Georgia line. But the 2 areas that really pop on the map here, you can see Texas, the panhandle there into the Oklahoma panhandle, western Kansas and up into southern Nebraska. Level 2 or slight risk there, scattered severe storms possible later today. And then up into Minnesota, right along the Minnesota-Wisconsin border, we have a level 2 threat there. But I want to focus on that area to the north because they have that slightly elevated risk for tornadoes from International Falls down through Minneapolis and then into the western and northwestern parts of Minnesota or Wisconsin. So we'll watch all of that. Other than that, the primary threats for those 2 areas under the slight risk, larger hail, and they do have that second elevated tier for that same area that we just showed you with that tornadic risk. International Falls down through Minneapolis, and then areas in southern Nebraska also could see some larger hail. Other than that, wind will be the primary concerns, and that includes that area down along the Georgia-Florida line. Now, as we look ahead to Wednesday, you can see that chance at slight risk of severe weather over eastern Colorado, and then the slight or level 2 risk from Illinois through Indiana and southern Michigan. And guess what? That area we need to focus on because basically from Chicago all the way over to Detroit, there is an elevated risk, but you get into that second tier of elevation for southern Michigan. That's Hillsdale over to Benton and down into South Bend. So Notre Dame paying close attention to that tornadic threat tomorrow. That extends down to Fort Wayne and just north of Lafayette. So that's a look at the tornado potential. I can show you as we look ahead to Thursday, there's just marginal risks for the parts of the Northeast, including New York State, Pennsylvania, and Northern Virginia, obviously Maryland there as well, and then out to the west, Colorado into western Nebraska. We're going to take a real quick break. It's time to do that. We'll take 2 minutes and come back with more, and we'll have more on the Hawk Fire and the Ross Fire right after this. Welcome back to the weather desk. As we take a look right now at the radar images, there's a brand new severe thunderstorm warning, and that's for Decatur County, Graham County, Norton, and Sheridan County. That's in the northwest part of Kansas. Only about 7,500 people under that, but I did want to make you aware that they do have that severe thunderstorm warning. That will run until 9:15 Central, 10:15 Eastern, so it literally just was issued, and it'll run for the next hour. So some rough weather back there in Kansas. I want to talk to you about the wildfire situation. We addressed this yesterday on the weather desk. Fire crews in Nevada are making progress stopping a wildfire from spreading, and that wildfire, the Ross Fire, now destroying more homes in Reno. Since sparking over the weekend, the hawk has scorched some 15,000 acres, now 27% contained, but remains a challenge for firefighters. Reed Binion reports.
Stay informed, watch outside, and please be ready to go.
Even with some evacuation orders downgraded and firefighters making progress Monday, authorities in Nevada say the threat from the massive hawk fire is far from over. The blaze, which started Saturday, has torched tens of thousands of acres just northwest of Reno. It's also forced thousands of evacuations. A convention hall lined wall to wall with cots for displaced residents.
I'm just going to pray and ask God.
The blaze threatening lives.
We've had 4 civilian injuries and 3 firefighter injuries.
And destroying homes.
Our damage assessment teams made their way out into certain areas yesterday. 32 destroyed homes and 6 damaged homes.
Officials expect those numbers to increase. Authorities say the fire was human-caused.
We're looking for any evidence that we can find.
But it's unclear if it was intentional or accidental.
We're asking our community for support. Did you see anybody out there? Did you see anybody around the fires that took off? Was it accidental? Was it intentional?
On Monday, officials said firefighters made progress holding the blaze. Still, with dense grass and brush in the fire's path, high winds and low humidity could worsen the situation in the coming days.
They need Mother Nature, hopefully, to just remain calm for just a little bit.
I'm Reed Binion reporting.
All right, we're going to turn our attention from Reno and the Ross Fire back over to Texas, and this is the Ross Fire. So that was the Hawk Fire. We're going to now turn to the Ross Fire, and you see it right there on the map, just out to the west of Texas. It has scorched another 15,000 acres, very much like the Hawk Fire right now in size. As of last night, it was just 5% contained, and it's not the only wildfire crews are working to get under control. Less than 100 miles to the south of that, the Rio Escondido fire has burned nearly 3,000 acres and is nearly 20% contained. So far, there have been no injuries with that fire. Good news there. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Again, when we come back, a look at the tropics, and things are getting active. All right, we are getting to a point now in the season where we expect more and more tropical activity. You know, we typically find the peak of the hurricane season in the Atlantic from late August through September and into early October. And we have to look more across the entire Atlantic basin. I'm happy to report right now things are quiet along the Virginia Beach coastline. We don't have anything tropical brewing just off our coast, but the tropics have been and continue to pick up, and we are looking at a number of areas of interest out in the eastern and central Pacific. Now, we had Moke over the weekend, and Moke passed to the south of Hawaii, and we didn't get as much as we got from Lala. Now, obviously, Lala had major impacts on on Hawaii, especially the Big Island. But with Moke passing by a little farther to the south, not as much rain, not as much wind. That, as of this morning, just a remnant low. So no worries there. We had forming this morning Julio, and we already had Isel. So you had one tropical storm, and Isel was just below hurricane strength. That is not a threat to Hawaii. Julio formed south, a couple hundred miles south, actually a few hundred miles south of Isel. That one is not expected to last very long. It is a tropical storm right now, and that too is not a threat to Hawaii. Those are both moving off. Well, Isel's moving off to the northwest, but Julio, this new one that just popped up, is far away from land, and it is drifting to the north. Over in the Atlantic Basin, this is what I want to talk to you about. We've got two areas we're watching. One is now east-northeast of Bermuda, and that area has a moderate chance, about 40%, but it is of developing. It is going to move over cooler water as it continues to move off to the north, and it is not going to even impact Bermuda. It will likely weaken. There's another area closer to the Cabo Verde Islands, and that's clear across the eastern Atlantic. That one's got a 70% chance, or a pretty high likelihood, of developing further over the coming week. So we're going to watch that over the next 7 days, but we still have this active pattern, and I do anticipate more storm systems coming through, and that's going to help recurve that area that's over by Cabo Verde before it impacts us here on the East Coast. And likely, I don't even think it's going to reach Bermuda based on how the models are projecting right now. Of course, that could change over the next week, so we definitely want to keep an eye to it. But right now, two named systems, Isel and Julio in the Pacific, and then we've got these two areas we're watching in the Atlantic. A lot going on. And of course, this week marks the 21-year anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. We told you yesterday about this again, slamming the Gulf Coast, and the storm revealed major failures in emergency response, evacuation planning, and disaster coordination. It reshaped FEMA and changed how America prepares for disasters to this day. Meteorologist Evan Stewart explains.
In August 2005, Hurricane Katrina changed America forever. The storm struck the Gulf Coast as a Category 3 hurricane, but the real disaster came after the storm left, when levees failed in New Orleans and floodwater swallowed much of the city. Shocking scenes unfolded live on television, families trapped on rooftops, thousands stranded inside the Louisiana Superdome, and rescue crews that were overwhelmed. More than 1,800 people died. But Katrina didn't just show us the power of nature, it exposed failures in emergency response. Communication broke down between local, state, and federal agencies, and FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, faced intense criticism for its slow response. After Katrina, FEMA was reorganized. Evacuation plans were improved, and emergency alerts came faster and were more coordinated. The storm also changed how America viewed vulnerability, revealing how poverty, infrastructure, and preparedness can determine who survives a disaster. Katrina taught America a hard lesson. Sometimes the greatest disaster isn't the storm itself, it's what happens when the systems meant to protect us fail.
Welcome back to the Weather Desk. All right, we're going to turn our attention to some of the really rough weather we've been seeing. And we'll start with the almanac because yesterday we had a high of 85. The last 4 days have been cool, but it's also been really wet, which leads us into our next story. You see Saturday, 1.22 inches of rain. That was on the heels of rain Friday and Thursday. And there was much heavier rain in the downtown area. And we need to take a look over downtown Norfolk right now. It is quiet, but the city and the Virginia Stage Company are assessing the damage at Wells Theater after the severe flooding over the weekend. Photojournalist Michael Woodward got a look at repairs.
We were in the process of cleaning up and starting some repairs to the building to address the situation from Thursday. We had a repair to a drain pipe that failed. So when the heavy rain came on Saturday, we had flooding all over again, but in a much more concentrated way. Less than 10 seconds, we were filling up a 50-gallon trash can. Water sort of blasted out of a drain pipe right into our backstage and flowed all over the stage, under the stage, into the house of the theater. We think most of the historic features of the building were unaffected by the water, but we'll continue to work on that. Over 2 hours, the water was flowing out of the pipe. It is a challenging building to work with, but we love being a historic venue and preserving that history of Norfolk. There are a lot of challenges in the plumbing systems, the HVAC systems, the way that everything in the building is tied together. It's a unique structure that we put a lot of care into maintaining. You know, I was at home talking to a friend and saying, like, I don't know if I should be worried about this rain, and then I got the call from the person who was here. So we were all on edge already about what it would mean, knowing that the repairs weren't complete. But yeah, shocking to have this happen twice.
The Wells Theater is such a beautiful and, again, historic theater, and we'll look forward to them getting everything ship-shape. As we turn our attention now to Virginia Beach, our inboxes here at the station were really just blowing up with messages about a strange sight in the sky. Check it out. There was a rocket launch. It was a SpaceX rocket launcher, Starlink mission 1049. I believe they were launching 27 or 29 Starlink satellites into low Earth orbit. The pictures were taken by Christina in Red Mill, and that Falcon 9 rocket, again, launching around 5:33 this morning from Cape Canaveral. But the images were gorgeous, and it was visible. I noticed some of our sister stations up and down along the East Coast able to see that. Absolutely beautiful. You saw that look with the rocket in the sky, and I had a buddy again say, Craig, you should have seen the comet. It was amazing. I said, Anthony, that's not a comet. That's a rocket. And again, very cool sight this morning. All right, speaking of cool, we've got lower or cooler dew point temperatures, and that means drier air is working in. You can see those dew points, especially inland, lower to mid 50s right now around Petersburg. That's a much drier atmosphere. Even the low 60s around Norfolk feels so much better than it did before when those temperatures were so high. You know, we had dew points in the low 70s and mid 70s when it was a lot more humid. Conditions out there right now looking pretty good across the region. We have mostly sunny skies from our Skyview here, the Thompson Creek Window Company Skyview, and currently at the airport it is 77 degrees. All right, today it is going to be a nice day. We do have temperatures that will top out in the low to mid 80s for most of the region. It's going to be mostly sunny. Later tonight, skies mainly clear, a low near 67. And then tomorrow, temperatures back up around 86. A lot of sunshine. This temperature, though, very typical for this time of year. 88 on Thursday. Chances for isolated to scattered showers or storms late Thursday and scattered wet weather on Friday. The weekend, a little bit drier, some showers maybe early Saturday, but nicer, hopefully late Saturday and Sunday. I hope you had a good time with the Weather Desk. We'll see you next time.